Okay, hello and welcome. So this is Staying Healthy and Well at Home. My name's Suzanne and my business is called Your Inner Calm Coach. What I specialise in is helping women to lose weight from a mind-body perspective. And what I thought might be helpful over this time in isolation would be to bring on different guests, different people to give us a different perspective on health and who are specialists in their own areas. And tonight I've got the amazing Mary-Anne Bennett coming in to talk to us about it's eating for your genes. And so it's all about what kind of food we can eat to support our genes and our health and any issues that we've got. Totally fascinating. It has an amazing name that I was able to pronounce it a few minutes ago and I can't now. But I'm going to hand everything over to you, Mary-Anne, because I'm really interested and keen to hear all about eating for your genes. So away you go.
Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. Obviously, Mary-Anne, my business is Adelaide Nutrition and Wellbeing. I got into nutrition because my health failed, and one of the things that I really looked at when I wasn't getting any better was, were my genes having an effect on my health? And oh my God, when I looked at them, I thought, oh my God, there it is. It was all there in the picture. So I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And I knew that I had to make changes to my diet and lifestyle. So the word that Suzanne and a lot of other people really struggle is, during my studies, I learned about Nutrigenomics. So basically, Nutrigenomics is the study of how you can eat to affect how your genes function. And, majority of people have heard, we all know we have genes. But your genes control everything in the human body. We all know that. They make you who you are. They colour the colour of your hair. The old knowledge was that you couldn't change your genes. Your genes were your genes, and whatever your health outcomes were, you couldn't change them. Science has come a long way in the last 10 to 20 years since they mapped. They mapped the human genome. They finished doing that in 2003 and found 22,000 genes. Not all of them they know a lot about, but there are a lot that they do know about. And a lot of those is around the things that you really need to know. So how to affect how you can eat for your genes to affect your immune system. So how you can use the food you eat to switch those genes that turn on inflammation or turn it off. How you can affect your mood by what you eat, because your food, unless you know, a lot of neurotransmitters are produced in your gut, and then by what you eat, you can not only affect the genes, but you can affect the production of your neurotransmitters. So I'm really fascinated. So I changed my health outcome by eating for my genes. And every day I talk to people about healthy eating. And in the beginning, it was just about, eat the rainbow of foods. But now I'm learning, eat the rainbow of foods, because you can have this or that effect on your genes. So everyone's fascinated at the moment. We are all locked down and COVID-19 has taken over the world. But what you have to understand is that viruses are around us all day, every day. And what you can do, what you do today, what you eat today can have an effect immediately on your genes. It's not something that you have to wait forever to achieve. So I really like the idea of helping. I work with women. I work with people with chronic health issues, because those are the people that really need to look mostly at their health. As women, as you would all know, we have lots of roles. We have roles as mothers and wives and business owners, or we have a job that keeps us busy. And we often put our health, we don't put any value on our health. So if you could simply look at your diet and how what you eat can affect your genes, well, then it really can have a profound effect on your health. Does anyone got any questions to start? Do you have anything you want to ask Suzanne?
Oh, no. Am I? Oh, yes. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
So, no, really just a comment and observation that, you know, there is such a profound connection between the mind and body, and and it's the mind-gut connection, which is really makes the difference, particularly from, you know, my perspective with my weight loss clients, and you know, their mental state, you know, whether they're happy or sad, affects how their gut works, whether their gut, you know, whether their the microbiome are going to be actively doing what they should be doing or not. It's simply by the way that we're thinking at that particular time, which is really fascinating. So, you know, knowing what kinds of foods, and, you know, I do have clients that come to me with fibromyalgia. They have other health issues, and yeah, it would just be really beneficial to know what kind of foods, you know, that are going to help them.
Well, I mean, I guess, you know, I'm a huge believer in that. One of the challenges for people when they have health concerns, they get diagnosed with fibromyalgia or thyroid problems or of the like. One of the biggest challenges is they think they can change their diet. I'm a huge believer that there's a huge role of mindset, getting people to change their mindset. And I'm been currently talking to, I've done a lot of NLP myself, NLP and around, you can't get people to make those changes often if they don't understand. But when you talk about the gut, I always talk, and, you know, mindset, I always talk about people, because a lot of people, you know, you realise that the gut and the brain are actually physically connected by the vagus nerve, as you would know, Suzanne, by the vagus nerve, so they're sending messages to each other thousands of times a day. So what happens in your gut affects what happens in your brain. They actually call the gut the second brain. So, you know, because it does have a lot of control. And if you've ever, I mean, we talk about if you eat, you know, when you're sad or you're depressed or you're bored, you eat because you're bored, or you eat chocolate and it makes you feel better. So why does it make you feel better? There's compounds in chocolate. So in your cacao, there are compounds that can have effect your mood. So I look at food, you know, food can also affect the gut microbiome in that it feeds the microbiome. So whatever you eat will feed the microbiome. So one of my favourite things that I talk to people about when it comes to talking about eating for your genes, and when you understand that the root of all chronic health problems is inflammation, and a lot of that inflammation often starts in the gut, you've got to look at what you can eat to turn down that inflammatory reaction. I mean, we've all, you know, if you've ever heard of, we all know that people have heard about histamines. So histamines are what the body naturally would, body's natural response to, and you think of that in hay fever. But histamine-containing foods can trigger, or histamine-containing seeds or dust or pollens, you know, stimulate that histamine response, and that histamine response in the gut, and then you turn on your inflammation. And if that inflammation is turned on chronically, so if it never ever actually gets switched off, you then have to look at how can you switch it off. One of my favourite things is and everyone know, you would all have used turmeric, curcumin, the bioactive. So lots of foods contain what we call bioactive ingredients. So bioactive ingredients are non-nutritive, so don't have to worry about putting on weight. There's no calorie content in them, but what they are is chemical constituents in fruits and vegetables, in nuts and seeds and herbs and spices that have a direct effect on the enzymes that turn those genes on and off. So that turns the genes that cause inflammation off, because that's one of the biggest issues. So when we turn off inflammation, adding turmeric to a curry, eating, you can add foods such as your sulforaphanes, and people, if you don't know that term, your green leafy vegetables like cabbage and broccoli, kale, wasabi, watercress, all of those greens have a compound in them called sulforaphane. And once you, when you eat them, and when you now have them, see, what the other component of eating for your genes is knowing how to prepare the food. See, I don't prescribe to any one diet. I don't prescribe to any particular diet other than a healthy eating diet. So because some foods, some of these bioactive ingredients in foods are better if you activate them. So you activate them by chopping up the food, or some other ingredients are activated by heating them, whereas other bioactive ingredients are, if you heat them, then you kill off those ingredients. So it's a matter of knowing which ones of those you can use to have that profound effect on your genes, and to have that effect of being able to turn off those. I mean, sometimes you want to turn your genes on because you don't have, if you're talking about your detoxification pathways, you need them to be switched on so that they're working, because you're exposed to toxins in food in your environment every day. But there are other genes that are turned on that you want to switch off. So using the foods that you eat to do one of those, and there are specific foods that can work in lots of different pathways. I do have, for all of you guys that attended tonight, I will, if you drop me your email, I can send you a copy of my 5 top foods to switch off, to feed your genes, and boost your immunity, because let's face it, that's one of the things. So I love eating healthy, eating curries, eating, fresh leafy green vegetables, but it's about balancing. So it's not about cutting any one food, putting one food in or out of your diet. I believe, as Suzanne would attest to, that if you want to make changes, if you want to be the healthiest version of yourself, you have to make it a lifestyle change, not a diet change. So whether you're looking to just get healthier, whether you're looking to work on your current health challenges, or whether you're looking to lose weight, all of those are based around lifestyle changes. I don't prescribe to, I don't eat carbohydrates or don't eat fat. What I do prescribe, and I do attest to, is that I don't recommend processed foods, and many people would be aware of, fresh is best. Or like I put on Facebook last night, I got really creative, and everyone has heard that song, we can sing a rainbow. Well, I wrote about eating the rainbow. Because I love to talk about eating the rainbow. So fresh fruit and vegetables that are all different colours, and don't cut out protein. Protein is what most people need to know, is that protein is the building block of your DNA, and without protein, whether that be a vegetarian form of protein or a animal version of protein, you need protein to build your DNA, to build your muscles, and that's one of the things that most people think, I won't eat meat. Well, if you don't want to eat meat, protein, you can eat vegetarian. So eating a varied diet. So got any more input there, Suzanne?
Yes, so I guess we don't have to be tested for our genes. Our genes don't have to be tested to work out what we need to eat.
No.
But what we do need to do is know what kind of foods are good for us in terms of eating for our genes to support the function of what they do in their in our body. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have clients that come to me to say that they're sugar addicts, or they just insatiably have insatiable salt cravings.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone that has, because we know that we shouldn't be eating processed sugar. It's not good for us. And I have a very nifty little NLP trick, the like to dislike, where I can get rid of people's cravings just like that. It's very effective. But what would you say to people, if they said, "Oh, I can't stop eating sugar"?
How see Suzanne and get some NLP.
All right.
Seriously, I think that's one of the things. You've got to have a very strong will to want to make changes in your diet and lifestyle, or you have to have a life-changing, oh my God moment, or a lot of people get, unfortunately get cancer or are at a position. So I was 45 years old. I had 4 kids. I had a 4-year-old granddaughter, and I went, oh my God, the doctor says I've got to live with this chronic pain and this not being able to do anything for the rest of my life. People often need that, oh my God, I have to do something. Other than that, I would love to be, I am planning on later in the year doing NLP training for myself, but I believe I should leave that sort of thing to the expert. And at the moment, the experts, I know an expert right here on the screen, Suzanne. And so I think making any of those changes, I mean, there are certainly things you can look at helping people with that you can give them. I mean, one of the components that looking at the liver, so looking at the detoxification pathways, your liver actually is what breaks down and processes all your sugar. So looking at making sure that they've got all the nutrients and all the things that support the genes to help them with that. So chromium's one is a nutrient that most people you find in eggs and unfortunately mostly in animal products, that a lot of people, because they don't eat animal products, cut them as a diet. But you can work with those types of foods to help make sure that they are not producing them, but then you can also work on those pathways and the gut. And one of the biggest things you need to work out when you've got people with gut, sugar cravings is their gut health, the gut microbiome, because what you feed your gut means what neurotransmitters you produce, which can affect the ability of your brain to feed those cravings. You really need to look at your gut microbiome. So one of the first things I will do is, in order to look at your health, if you come to me and want to learn about eating for your genes, what I basically do is I do the same as I would do with any client. I can look at your signs and symptoms, what's going on and what you're telling me, and look at and have a really good idea about what it is, what genes in your pathways are not working properly, and what areas we can work on, where we can start. And I can do that on a fairly generic level. When I say generic, I mean it's not as individualised. Everything I do is individualised based on what the client presents with. Doing the nutrigenomic testing just adds that extra layer. So then we can actually identify exactly what gene, what pathway, because when you talk about genes, they don't work on their own. They work in pathways, and often there will be a numerous amount of genes in that pathway. And it might not be just one that's not working properly. It could be 2 or 3 or 4 that aren't functioning properly. So nutrigenomic testing can identify all of the genes in your inflammatory pathway that are not working properly, all of the genes in your gut microbiome, all the genes in your heart, in your cardiovascular pathway, or your hormone profile, because that's what the testing that I use, the company that I use, they test 5 different pathways. So you can get your whole of your, they don't test, a lot of you have probably heard of testing companies like 23andMe and Ancestry.com. That's basically what they call direct-to-consumer testing. What they do is they give you a printout of your 22,000 genes and give you a rough idea, but it doesn't give you any health information. So even though we know all of those genes, there isn't scientific evidence for all of them to prove that they have any effect on your risk of chronic disease. At the moment, they're working on about 60 genes that they have scientific research behind them to say that those genes, they know that they have an effect on, say, cardiovascular disease, or increasing your risk of cardiovascular disease. They can have an effect on your detoxification pathway. So looking at the company that I use, they test those 60 genes. So we don't do DNA testing. What we do is nutrigenomic testing. So testing based around the genes that we know can have an influence on your health, and then looking at that report and looking at that, how we can use that report to make a difference. So to do a completely individualized, personalized health and wellness plan to say, hey, this is where we start. So these genes are indicated first. This is the pathway. So whereas you can do it from just, hey, these are the foods that work on these pathways. So we can look at, perhaps you've got inflammation, perhaps you're not detoxifying properly, or so I can do that for everybody. I can do that for everyone. But what I would prefer, and for people that don't have, for people who just want to look at their health and wellness and just want to increase their energy or lose weight, or reduce their risk if you're young and younger. I mean, I don't know what you guys can call young. For me, most of you look younger than me. When you look at younger people, some people, I mean, athletes are even using nutrigenomic testing now to increase their performance, because it can look at those genes, the genes involved in energy production, for example, to just give them increased health and wellness. Whereas for the nutrigenomic testing, it depends on how deep you want to go. For me, my health wasn't getting better before I took that really deep dive. So I working with people who have what I call gone down every other rabbit hole and not really getting any better. It's a really good way of really getting down to that really ground, that bottom basement level of, this is actually what's going on, and then let them, educating them and teaching them and showing them how they can make a difference. Not by taking medications, not by taking a big bundle of supplements. I don't not prescribe supplements if people's health is chronic, and then we do use supplements for symptom relief, so to improve their energy, to make them feel better, to help their gut function better. But on a basic level, I talk to people about what you can eat, and now what you can eat for your genes. It can have a profound effect.
And so when you do the I want to say
so just say the genomic testing.
That when you do that testing, what is it? Is it a blood test, or is it a
saliva test?
Oh, okay.
So I have the kits in my office. I work from home. I prefer that because I have a retired partner, and I don't need to have an office at the moment. And at the moment where obviously people are not coming into the office, I can I just post you the test kit, the instructions, and then I usually do have a consultation and then go through the procedure of how to fill out. So just spit in the tube, put it in the thing, put it in the bag, and just send it back. It takes about it's really simple, and it takes about 3 weeks to get your results back. And because it's an Australian company, see, the other thing people don't realise is there's a lot of people scared to do any type of genetic testing because they're worried about their privacy. In Australia, we have really strong, the government has put in place really, really strong regulations around privacy and storage of your DNA. The companies here are stringently, they check them all the time. So looking at a company, that's why, I mean, I had mine DNA tested through an American company because I didn't know any better back then. So I got this big report and didn't know how to use it, and had to have someone else interpret it for me. The good thing now is that, I mean, if you've already had your DNA tested through one of those companies, we can then put it through another program very cheaply and we can use that. But this company are an Australian-based company based in Queensland. And yeah, so they keep all their DNA in-house and they do destroy your sample if that's what you would like after you get your report sent to you.
And so the results come back and then you advise the person on what kind of foods are going to help them based on whatever their issue is at the time.
So what it can also identify, other than just what foods you can eat, it does identify things like what sort of exercise, you know, because we all know that exercise is great for you. And for me, I'm a fan of walking. I see people out riding a bike and I think it's a waste of a good walk. But, you know, some people are gym junkies. They love going and doing aerobic exercise. So they love doing HIIT classes or they love to do weights and things. What your specific genome can tell you, or your nutrigenomic testing can give you an indication of what exercise, what type of exercise, other than walking, because everybody can do walking, is best for you. So what I was doing, I realised that I was absolutely, and it can actually indicate on what time of the day is the best time for you to exercise. So I've worked out that if I exercise after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my body is so wired that I can't sleep. And I didn't know that was because it was in my genes. And when I discovered that, it was so I now get up and, you know, if I'm going to exercise, I'll go to the gym in the morning. Well, I can't go to the gym at the moment. So I go and do endless amounts of walking in the morning. So yeah, there's other things it can actually identify, which is really good.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And what about, does it talk about circadian rhythm in terms of, you know, best times to eat? Does your genes affect the best times of the day to eat?
Yes,
Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Because, you know, we all have, I've done some, because one of the things that a lot of people diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and me specifically, have problems with sleep. So sleep rhythm, and then when you should eat. So most people will, you know, we have this, oh my God, we should eat 3 meals a day. We should eat this many calories, or we should, you know, if we want to lose weight, we need to stop eating. There's lots of things around. The worst thing you can do if you want to be healthy is to actually stop eating, because your body is attuned from back through the days of the hunter-gatherer to hang on to fat when you stop eating, because that was a defense mechanism, because food wasn't abundant back then. The hunter-gatherer, you know, in those era where they'd have to go and catch whatever they ate or forage for whatever they ate. And if they didn't have any food, they might not eat for a couple of days, or they'd eat a huge amount of food and then they wouldn't eat. So our bodies are programmed to do that. But because everyone has what they call a phenotype, so your phenotype might be one where you should fast for 16 hours and only eat in an 8-hour window. What a lot of people, what it can also tell you, what I've done a lot of research into is people that have health issues, or even people that have digestive issues. So even if you don't, if you have with weight gain, a lot of people get gas and bloating and digestive problems. A lot of that can be to do with or motility issues. So not using your bowels every day, or at least a couple of times a day. What that can be to do with those genes that control the motility of your gut. So then you can learn to work with what is it that's missing, what is it that's not working with the motility in the gut. But what it is people also have been told, if you don't want to put on weight, eat 5 times a day, eat lots of little meals. And that can be very detrimental to your gut health, because the gut has what they call the migrating motor complex. So that's what the movement, when it moves food through your digestive tract. And what it needs is a window of 4 hours to move what you've eaten from your stomach through into your small intestine, and to move it into your large intestine. If you are continuously eating, your body doesn't have chance to do that, for that movement, so for that migrating motor complex to work properly. And then you are continuously eating, so the digestive system is not working. It doesn't have a chance to finish. So learning how to eat in that rhythm that suits you, but learning that the digestive system needs that time to move food. So making sure that those meals that you're eating are not only feeding your genes, but giving you enough nutrients to actually keep yourself from feeling hungry in between that 4-hour period. And that can also help with not just your digestive health, but with one of the things with weight loss, as Suzanne would attest to.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's what I say is, as long as you're eating the right amounts of protein, carbohydrates, vegetables, and fats 3 times a day, you won't be looking for any food. The last time I ate was 12 o'clock, and I'm not hungry. It's nearly 6. I'll be going home for dinner, but I'm not hungry. I didn't need to snack, because I know that I have the right amounts of the right kinds of foods. But what I want to ask too, another question, and please, if anyone's got questions, pop them into the chat, and we'll get on to them next. I do have, what about people that are on shift work? So I do have a client that is, they work, their working part of the day is at night, and their sleeping part is the day. So it's completely, flipped around. And so, weight loss is quite challenging. Why is that? And what would you suggest for that scenario?
I think it's challenging. I've got a stepson who works from 7 till 2 in the morning, and then sleeps from 2 until 2, and usually till 2 in the afternoon. So yeah, it is challenging to actually, and what that is it changes the rhythm, the circadian rhythm. So then it changes puts everything out of whack, basically. But what you can do, I think, is realise that it's just about what you eat. As you would know, we eat based on the amount of work we do. So for me, when my stepson, he always has his biggest meal of the day before he goes to work. So his dinner is his breakfast, basically. And he's had weight issues for as long as I have known him, since he was a little kid. And his idea is making sure that his diet, as you mentioned, Suzanne, is the meals he eats are balanced. And the one thing that most people don't put in, even if they eat a healthy diet, is that protein. So that protein will then help with that maintaining of your satiety, and making sure that your hormones aren't raging out of control and causing you to have those cravings. So I don't deal a lot with people that work shift work. I know it's a very difficult area to work in. I'm scratching my head here. But yeah, I think you can. I just think you get used to it. My stepson's been doing it for 10, 12 years now. So his body is it works. I think it's just a matter of, like everything else, making sure you have regular eating patterns, whether you eat breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning, or if you start work at 7, at 5, having a regular routine, making sure your diet is balanced, and that you're not, because you're awake, you're not snacking. Like I would say to any other person, don't snack in the middle of the night, like you would with any, and making sure you're getting those, making sure your sleep patterns are regular. So said my stepson often sleeps for 12 hours and wakes up absolutely starving. So yeah, making sure all of the things you would normally do. I mean, if you're working the same hours, I mean, I guess people that work a shift work don't always work the same shift. So that makes it even harder again. Whereas some, don't have a lot of answers to those questions.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, what I had, what my gut feeling is, is that they eat the larger meal during the working part of their day, and the smaller meal during the sleeping part of their day, because obviously their body's not moving, not work, not doing anything. So the lightest meal should be the end of the day, end of their day, whether that's night shift or day shift.
Yeah, I agree totally. Like everyone should, we've been conditioned for years to eat the biggest meal of the day at dinner time. But then what happens with most people is they don't exercise after dinner. They let that then sits there in their stomach, and that's where it's going to stay, because the body will move it through, but you're not using any extra calories. So if you want to be eating, I'm trying to get that around to people, especially if you're someone who is at home with the kids all day. Nursing homes do it for older people now. They feed them their biggest meal in the middle of the day, making sure that you realise that you don't need. The other thing is portion control, of course. I talk to my clients about how much do you actually need to eat, what's going in. I mean, don't like to talk about your
stomach. It's actually only about this big, isn't it?
And the more you eat, the more you can actually stretch it. And about eating, they talk about eating till you're 80% full. If you are looking at your food and thinking whether you should eat the rest of it, don't eat the rest of it. That's when because what they do is and eating slowly, because it takes about 20 minutes for the brain and the body to go, oh my God, yes, I'm eating, maybe I'll be full. So some people eat so fast, they smash down a big plate of food and then go, oh, I feel bloated, I shouldn't have eaten all that. Well, if you slow down or not put as much on your plate, you don't get those issues. So yeah, there's a lot of things. What I've discovered, there's a lot of things that people don't know about eating.
Yes, and that's what I teach my people is to eat slowly, because as soon as you start eating fast, your body automatically thinks you're in fight or flight. It's going, what's wrong? Why am I eating so fast? And you can have the same meal, the same amount of food, throw it down and be hungry again, and then but you can have that same meal and eat it, within 20 minutes, or and chew the food and breathe in between, and then you're not hungry, because your brain, as you say, hasn't registered that you've had anything to eat, because you've just woofed it down, or it just gets stuck here. It doesn't. Your body, your digestive system goes, no, not eating. I need to run. So,
mindful eating, not
Yeah.
just mindful, mindfulness. Mindful eating is that people don't, think about what they're eating, think about how they're eating, think about how fast they're eating. Consciously think about, don't be distracted. A lot of people eating in a hurry, eating in a rush, eating in front of a television, or see some people, especially when you're out, they're sitting in a restaurant with the phone there, and think about just what you're doing. Concentrate on, focus on enjoying the food you have in front of you, and realizing that this is going to nourish your body. And
Yes.
you need to focus and realize that this is one of the most important things you do every day, is what you eat, what you feed yourself. Because I think the biggest misnomer people think is, oh my God, I'm going to be healthy forever. I'm never going to, I can eat whatever I want. I'm never going to put on weight. I'll be thin forever, or, I'm just supposed to be this size. But what they don't realize is that, like everything in the human body, it works well whilst you're feeding it. And we have a reserve. We have an energy reserve. We have nutrient reserves. And if we continue to feed our body properly, then, and make sure that we're not overfeeding it, we're sleeping well, we've got lowered amount of stress. What can happen is you can stay well. What happens when you get stressed, you eat lots, and then that can affect your sleep, it affects your mood, you go to work, your work affects, it all has that cumulative effect. And then what you're doing is you're turning on those genes that you don't want to be turned on. You're turning on your inflammation, you're turning on your stress genes. Or stress is turned on and it never turns off. And then you get stuck there. And as you would know, we're working with people around what they eat and their mindset, is that one of the biggest things that people need to understand is that stress now is different to what it used to be. People say, oh, I'm not stressed. I'm not stressed. Oh, I've got a deadline. They try and fit so much in a day. They try and achieve so much. Oh my God, I've got to go and I've got to feed the kids. I've got to take them to school. Slow down and enjoy life. Enjoy that, work out what it is your priorities are in your life, because once you are in that chronically stressed state and the stress is just that underlying, oh my God, I've got deadline stress. It's not like it used to be when you might have been getting chased by a lion or if you go back thousands of years, a dinosaur. You don't have to worry about those things. But those little chronic stresses that you put on yourself every day can have a profound effect on your genes.
Yeah.
Have a profound effect on your health.
Yes. And there's a question here from Joe. Does testing help with IBS? And please feel free to unmute yourself, Joe, if you want to chat with Mary-Anne. Or do you want me to do it? Yeah.
No, that's okay. I'm here with the TV, so I'll move a little bit further away. Yeah, I'm just wondering with the testing, the genome, my daughter's got IBS and gluten intolerance, etc., etc. So does the testing help with identifying how she could be managing this better with her foods, etc.?
Certainly can, because you can look at the genes in the inflammatory pathway. So if she's gluten intolerant, you could look at gluten in your diet can increase inflammation. You can look at the celiac gene. One of the genes that they identify in the testing is the genes around the celiac pathway. But when you're talking about IBS has two common causes. It's not functional, so it's not something to do with the gastrointestinal tract not working properly. There's three things that usually affect it. One of them is stress, even though we don't think we're stressed. One of them is food intolerances that can cause IBS, and the other one is your genes. So the genes that affect your gut motility the genes that affect your gut microbiome and the genes that affect your inflammatory pathways, because the enteric nervous system makes up 70% of your immune system, and that the enteric nervous system is located in your gut. So just as it's not common knowledge that you produce neurotransmitters in your gut, a large percentage of your immune system is in your gut. So if you've got gut inflammation, that could be that is commonly the driver of IBS, alongside of those, and then that will drive those food intolerances. When I had migraines for years, when I had my genetic testing, I identified that I had celiac gene, but I didn't have, in the testing that I'd had, even the colonoscopy, I didn't have celiac disease. Once I fixed my gut health, I still don't eat gluten because I'm not a fan of, it's still inflammatory, and gluten isn't good for the human body. It's not easily digested. But I can tolerate gluten in small amounts now that I couldn't before, once I healed my gut microbiome. So you can work from a level of the genes that look at inflammation. And you can look at, but then you may find that there is other drivers. There's something else in your genetic path, in that genetic testing, that's driving that inflammatory pathway, because that's that when I mentioned that the genes don't work in isolation on their own, they work in combination together. So if one gene in one pathway, all of those pathways, or what we call cycles, all of those biological cycles, all interact with each other all the time, all day long, they interact with each other. And if one of those, if there's a gene in another pathway that's not functioning properly, it can have a downstream effect on your inflammatory pathway, which then affects the gut. So it's not oh my God, one gene does this or one gene does that. It's they all work in combination together. So doing the nutrigenomic testing, you can look at IBS and say, well, this is what could be driving it. Or you can look at the nutrigenomic testing and go, well, here's exactly what we think is driving it. It's not it won't say, oh my God, this is giving you IBS. It will say, well, this is affecting this pathway, which is affecting your inflammatory pathway, which is affecting your gut motility. And then it's a downstream effect. So it certainly can help, Jo.
So does that help, Jo? Yeah, good. Okay. Marty or Pip, do you have any questions for Mary-Anne? Oh, there's a question there. Do I need?
I was just going to ask, following on from what you've said. So the the Nutrigenomics testing, that would be specific to specific foods as well. So I mean, you've talked a lot about being like celiac and gluten, and is that the same for other foods as well? It will be quite specific.
It's not. It doesn't identify the foods. It's like allergy testing or inflammatory testing. It doesn't identify the foods as such, but it can identify the pathways in which those foods can have an influence over your genes. Because food has it's all about the reaction that food has downstream. So what you eat will then have an effect on your gut function, and then your gut function, so drives the immune system, drives the neurotransmitter production. It links to the brain, and what can have an effect is you can get a reaction to food that you eat, but it could be that it's something else that's driving that food. It's not necessarily the food. So if you fix the part, so if you work with the food, that'll help that pathway. So if you work on the genes in the food intolerances are driven by inflammation. So they're driven by that immune response. And if you work on looking at those genes in that inflammatory pathway, and you can look at, and you can often change those food intolerances. I'm not talking about things that are you're genetically predisposed to, like celiac disease. So the difference between a food allergy and a food intolerance. So a food allergy is something that's obviously genetic driven. So things like celiac disease, anaphylaxis, that's a nut allergy, seafood allergies, that they're different to a food intolerance. So a food intolerance is just that food will cause a reaction in the body, whether that be a stomach ache, or whether that be itchy skin, or makes you feel bloated and tired. There's a difference. So you can, when you're looking at your genes, you can certainly see the foods that may cause an food allergy, but you can't look at the ones that are, and most people don't know the difference between, and you wouldn't know the difference unless you'd seen a specialist. I don't have any food allergies. I have food intolerances even, but they can be driven by whether your gut microbiome is, can break down the food properly. Because we get a lot of people have what they call, if the gut microbiome and the gut lining deteriorates from an overgrowth of the wrong type of bacteria, so your microbiome gets out of balance, it can then cause a condition that's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or it can cause candida. Everyone's heard of candida because you can get candida in your mouth, in your vaginal tract, but you can get it in your gut. But it also can cause what they call leaky gut. So then the toxins that you're absorbing, that are in your gut, are reabsorbed out into the bloodstream, and then you get a reaction from those inflammatory. Then that sets off your inflammatory pathways, and then those foods are causing an external reaction. One of the major things that people don't realise is that if you get itchy skin, if you're one of these people, get itchy skin, that everything that happens on the inside can affect what's happening on the skin. So if you get an itchy, or you think, what have I rubbed on? But it can be an expression of what's happening in your gut. So those foods, those inflammatory foods, and that compromised digestive lining can then have an effect on, and it can then express out through the skin. So it's a very complex area.
Yeah. Does that help you, Pip?
Yeah, thank you.
Marty, did you have any questions?
Not questions, it's just fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Mary-Anne, this has been great.
Yes, so much information. It's been fabulous. So, Mary-Anne, it's almost 7. So I'm going to, and I think we've asked all the questions that we need, but I'm sure we'll think of things later. So how can we get in touch with you, and what else can you tell us, or let us know about what you might be able to offer?
Well, the first thing I can say, if you're interested in looking at nutrigenomic testing, or if you're just looking to learn about eating for your genes, first off, I've got a webinar coming up on the 1st of May. So I'm going to talk to people about the basics of what nutrigenomics is and eating for your genes. If you don't want to wait until the 1st of May, you can go onto either my website or my Facebook page and book in for a free 30-minute discovery call, so we can have a Zoom chat about or a phone call and discuss how what your particular circumstances are and how I can help you. But I do have an offer. I'm actually launching on the reason for the webinar is also launching the first round of my Eating for Your Genes workshops. So my program, which is a 6-week program where you will learn the basics about how to eat for your genes. And because you guys are on here, you get the special deal. The program's normally $595, but I'm offering it to you ladies if you're interested in for $395. That doesn't include the nutrigenomic testing. That is extra on top of that, but we can also, or I can look at that for you. So if you're interested, we can have a chat about that as well. So yeah, but check me out on Facebook, on Instagram, I've got my website, or just give me just flick me a message, and yeah, I'd love to have a chat.
Great. I've just posted your Facebook page on the comments. So, yeah, if you can maybe send us some details on that special, that would be fantastic.
So if you ladies want to pop your email address in, I'll send you my free 5 foods to feed you for eating for your genes, and then I'll send you the links and the information if you'd like to, so that you can about the program.
Yeah, good idea. Email addresses, good.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That has just been so interesting. Really, really informative, and yeah, really thank you for your time, Mary-Anne. So it's really great. So thank you, and thanks, ladies, for jumping on. And I just want to give a bit of a shout out, Joe. We're talking with you next week, aren't we? Yeah. Yep.
Yes, we'll talk we're talking about the wardrobe cleanse next week. So a bit of mindset, and then how to go about practically doing it. So a few little tips there that we can talk through.
Yeah, that'd be great. We've all got time on our hands, so
Exactly.
Get into the wardrobe, I reckon.
Yes, exactly.
Can you come and declutter my whole house?
Yeah.
Including my husband.
Now that's a whole different mindset. That one.
I know. I'll keep him. He's out in the kitchen cooking me dinner, so I shouldn't complain about that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
All right, everybody. Well, we might just leave it there. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming along. And this is being recorded, so if you want to get back to it, I'll post it on the page once it's downloaded. So,
awesome.
All right.
Cheers.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.